Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have a chance to work on a Tekota by Shimano. This is the Tekota 500 HG LC for line counter. And well, this one comes in, I got a pair of reels in here from Warren. Warren said, can I check it out? There's a lot of movement in the spool. And I think one of the things we just need to do is use that spool adjuster to take that movement out. But they're in for service, and we're going to do just that. We'll show you how to take this reel apart, how it's made, the purpose a little bit of that line counter. We'll show you how to clean it, re-lubricate it, get it fishing again. So if you like these types of videos, I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, please use that notification button. That'll let you know when I'm posting videos, and you can see if that's a video you would like to watch. We're going to start by taking off the exterior pieces. As I do that, I want to remind you I work on all kinds of fishing reels. This one is a saltwater line counter, and that kind of is a way to find the depth or where in the water column those fish are, so that well, when you get a strike, you can go right back to that marking, and well, you should be right back in action again. Popular on inshore fishing for trolling, for drop fishing if you're going to float something down through the water columns. So we'll show you how that operates in a moment. We're going to take my pieces and parts that I remove and put them into a parts tray. I'm using the fast food container, but I would encourage you, regardless of what you do in terms of servicing your reel, to have a plan for what you're going to do with the pieces and parts. One of those plans is to take pictures along the way. That'll help you to orientate your pieces, your parts, and when they came off. Another way to do that is to go out to the internet and get a schematic. This one is a schematic for the reel, and that can help you play along. And actually, if you look at the schematic before you start taking the pieces and parts off, you'll have an idea of exactly what you're going to face or what you're going to see when you do that. For example, there's a spring inside of here. This is your star adjuster. Take the spring out and put the adjuster back on, and it'll help you to take that nut that does all the adjusting off a lot easier. That spring is there to push this star adjuster out so that you don't accidentally engage in tightening or loosening the drag during a fight. This is a good place to take a picture. There's a tension washer, there's a flat washer, there's two bigger tension washers. They sit in the drag stack. And that's all we need to remove on this side at the moment. When you look next, we're going to remove the case. There are 4 screws on the case. Look on the back side. You're never quite sure if they're putting a screw there. And let's see if we can turn these with a number 1 Phillips head screwdriver. I'm just going to make sure all of these kind of break their hold before I go back and remove them all. And this one, the Tekota and Natorium are very similar in nature of the reels. And well, if you can service the one, you can service the other. I would often get them confused, but I just worked on a Natorium 14 HG. And I'm thinking this, with the exception of this one being a line counter, I'm thinking these are all pretty much the same in service. If you have the one, you can service the other. Notice that there's some blue on these screws. That would be a manufacturer applied cool Loctite. I get that question from time to time about should you use Loctite on screws. I don't recommend it. I get what the manufacturer is doing here. I don't like to have people put Loctite in, particularly the red one, because you never know if you're going to get those screws out the next time. Alright, those 4 screws are the same. That's why I laid them on my table here, to make sure that they were all the same length, same width, same diameter, all of that other good stuff. Because if there was one that was different, I would want to go ahead and note where that is. With those 4 screws off, we can remove the side plate now. If there's a weak part to these reels, it's this plastic carrier here for the free spool. Seems like that's the one that I wind up with as issues. I've wound up with that plastic carrier and broken springs. Broken springs I get, that's kind of like a hanger, the old wire hangers that we would use. Over time you just flex them back and forth and they break. Well, that kind of happens with this as well. Alright, there's a inner sleeve for your anti-reverse clutch. I want to take that out, clean that up, and in that parts tray I organize my pieces and parts in the corners. Helps them to segregate out the corners. This is very much like the Torium that I just did. Alright, we're going to pull these two yoke springs right away so I don't lose those. Those go into a corner of my tray. We should be able to remove this whole top stack here. Remove your pinion gear. And I'm not sure if this is going to slip out. Yeah, so this is your anti-reverse fail-safe. This is the backup. And if you wanted to, you could remove the free spool jack. I generally clean around that as opposed to removing it. There's a little spring here that tends to want to jump on you. There should be 4 screws now. 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. Those 4 screws are holding the backing on to the access to spool. So we're going to go take that off now. Those 4 are Phillips head screws. Take a picture right here, right now. If something jumps, if something like that spring that we're talking about there happens to get loose, well, at least you know the orientation of that spring before you started doing anything, so that you can put it back the same way. Take a picture of those 4 screws, where they go. They're in the small holes that are inside. They're not in the external ones that are along the rim there. That's where your side plate screws go. And again, doing the same thing here. I want to make sure those 4 screws are all the same. Okay, and we should be able to remove this whole assembly now. Oh, we can't because we have this line guide carrier held on by an E-clip here. If you find that you're getting stuck with something, stop, take a deep breath, evaluate, and then come on back and do something afterwards. Okay, we got the E-clip out of there. Get that into the parts tray along with those screws for safekeeping. Now that whole assembly should just kind of come up. Oh, I still don't have that last screw out. Kind of dancing around that free spool trip. Alright, that's your assembly there. We want to remove the spool. You do not need to remove all of the line counter stuff and the like. You just need to make sure that all of those gears have all of their teeth, and you do want to oil the bearing in the back. Of course, if you had a skipping line guide, you would certainly want to make sure that you replace the gears in that, but in this case, all of that is fine. Check the back end of this, make sure you clean that off. Whenever I hear something like skipping or a lot of play, which is what Warren was sending in, I always think there might be some broken line in there. So just go ahead and take the time to examine all of that. This is a bearing, so I'm going to oil that bearing. We oiled the bearing in the back case. I'm going to take my little scrubby pad and some rod and wheel cleaner. Just clean the inside of the case while I have access to it. Okay, we can go ahead and just check the back of this. Just going to use a cotton swab to get some of the little grease out of there. I'm not sure if this is a bearing or not. We'll oil both sides of that underneath the crank, and then we can reinstall this piece. When you go to reinstall, line up that line guide piece. Bring the line guide over. There's a little cap that goes here. Let's make sure all of that seats properly. You want a nice tight seal on this. I'm going to start by the one that's still in there. Tie that one down. And bring one up to the other side here. Well, would have helped if I put the spool back in, wouldn't it? Gotta get ahead of yourself sometimes. Alright, let's try this again. Put a bit of grease. And please use fishing reel grease when you're greasing your reels. A bit of grease onto the back stud. Carrier. Let's bring that spool back in. Now we can put this back on again. Again, make sure you're tight against the frame. Now we'll seal that up. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, maybe you're working on one and you're stuck, you want to leave those questions in the comment section. I will try to answer those questions for you, try to get you back on track in your service and repair. Maybe you're thinking about buying a reel like this, you want to know a little bit more about the specs. Whatever your questions may be, if you want to leave them in that comment section below, I will try to help you out there. Alright, one more of these screws. I did manage to knock that off anyway, didn't I? I did. Alright, well, back to that in a moment. There's one more screw to put in. Those of you that watch the channel know me, these little screws don't play well together from time to time, and looks like they're having their time of it right now. Go ahead and put that in. Okay. Tighten them all up, make sure that they're nice and solid seamed. And we have the little clip that needs to go in. There's an indent on the one side here. You want to note that and align that to this. Then you're going to put a little bit of pressure and lift up so that we can get the slot for this E-clip, so that we can install that. Sometimes you can just put it in with your finger strength. Sometimes you need a little assist from a screwdriver or pliers or something. Get that extra little leverage. I need just a little more help here. There we go. So that's your E-clip that's been installed. And we can come back now with this spool trip. I wasn't going to take it off, but I guess the reel repair gods, if you will, said take it off, show them how to do that. So we can do that. You have a little hole here for that little trip lever. I'm going to swing this spring out of the way so that I can match that in. then the idea here is to bring this whole assembly over. And now we can take that screw that we just took out. It's a retention screw, put that screw in. And once you get it started, go ahead and tie that down. And then you want to make sure, of course, that you're in the slots. And the best way to do that is just relax it. Okay, all set again. Let's take the backup failsafe for your anti-reverse. This has got a finger jointed anti-reverse dog. These are pretty easy to understand because you can't put this one on backwards. There's a stud on the bottom that's going to intersect with this lever here. So that goes on, and then with your anti-reverse dog, you want to wipe that clean. You'll see that it's not touching completely. That's okay. One finger goes on one side, one finger goes on the other side, and that's the way that it is set on your ratchet. Bring that over and merge that onto the stud in the case, and make sure that the square aligns with the square in your gear shaft. When you're turning, it should turn like this, allow you to turn free. When you back up, the friction should pull that in. We have the base washer that goes underneath. Now let's turn our attention to the pinion gear, because that's what should go on next. There's a ramp on the pinion gear that's going to face the spool side. Make sure that it is clean. Place a little bit of grease on each side. The slotted side of the spool is on the same side of the yoke that the ramp is on. And then check the teeth, which is, I've kind of been doing that subconsciously. Check the teeth, make sure that they're uniform, not chipped or cracked. And then go ahead and put the grease onto your pinion gear, and put your pinion gear assembly onto the two posts. Then you want to turn your pinion gear to make sure that that seats onto the spool. This is time to service the drags. Pull your drag washers out. Make sure that the dirt and debris is clean from the inside of the carrier. Check the teeth on the main gear. This one needs the grease just like the pinion gear did. So go ahead and do that. I use an artist's brush for the grease. Some folks prefer a flux brush or other things. I used to use a screwdriver, which worked fine for me, but apparently it was like chalk on a blackboard for some folks, so I moved over to the softer brush. One of the things that the screwdriver allowed me to do was put the grease on without ever trapping a hair, but the artist's brush doesn't shed hairs, so we're good there. Alright, we just installed the main gear. This is your drag washer assembly. I believe this is some version of a Carbon Tex drag washer. Wipe those clean. These can have light greasing on it, and these have light greasing on it, so I don't need to do anything more with that. This is a 6-washer set. All 3 metals are different. The first metal in is a keyed washer. It's a rectangular center and round. Again, there's plenty of grease on these. The next one in is the eared washer. It has 2 tags, and these tags are bent, if you will, facing one way. Those go inside. Same thing here. We have a smaller washer now for the top. Then we have the capped washer. You're going to notice a recess on this side, a raised portion on this side. The raised portion faces up. And we can get the gear sleeve. Place that back on. Make sure that your slot in the jack is up top. Make sure that your stud on your free spool release is in the high position. This can be high or low. It needs to be in the high position. I wanted to move that a little bit and moved it a lot. That's okay. I want to move that down just a little bit as it helps a little bit with merging in the case. Before we can put the case on, make sure you have your 2 springs for your yoke. And we can load in, line it up. And if you have a nice tight seam, chances are you have that stud in the holder. And well, we'll see when we tie the drags on, but I think we have it. With that nice tight flush finish, let's go ahead and put the side plate screws in. And of course, you're using your hand as a vise here. You have to hold it all together or it'll spring out. So once you get the first one in, you can kind of sort of relax, and then the second one will assure you that you can relax on that. 2 more screws here. And the last one, then we'll go ahead and do the outside. I'm just going to shut the camera off for a minute here, take a break. My hand is cramping here. And we'll come back and put the top on. Okay, let's complete that top end then. We want to start by putting in that stack of washers. We noted we have a couple of things going on. We have these curved washers here, bevels, concave, convex. One faces the belly up, one faces the belly down. And we have this washer that kind of sits on the stem, and then a flat washer underneath that nut. One more washer on that nut. And let's put the nut on. Now on the nut, there's 2 sides. There's a flat side and there's a side that has an indented ring. The indented ring faces up. And you want to bring this nut down as much as you can. It'll make installing the rest of this easier. So tighten it up. And you get your spring. Seat that into that cavity there on the nut. Next up, we want the star adjuster. Center the star adjuster over that piece and then press down on it so that it interlocks with that flat nut. There's a retention ring that goes over that. The handle is next. Again, you're using a lot of strength in your hands here. You're trying to hold this whole assembly down. Hand tighten this cap. It's easy to put this one on. Cross stripping, and if you cross strip it, you're going to ruin the cap. So hand tighten as much as you can, and once it gets hand tightened, take the opportunity to tighten down on the star adjuster before tightening the cap. When you do that, then tighten your cap, and then we can put our tie down piece on top of that. So, oh, just missed. Just missed. Okay, here we go. Tie down nut. Nut cap, retention ring, screw, we should be good to go. All right, well, we want to do that. Before we go final test, move your pawl over to one side. Use a screwdriver to remove that pawl cap. There's usually a little retention ring inside the pawl cap, and then you can remove the cap and the pawl. In this case, there's a washer it's sitting on there. I'm not going to disturb it. Of course, famous last words, I wasn't going to disturb that spring on the release lever, but I did anyway. You want to clean out the dirt on the shoulders of it. Check your worm gear. If your worm gear is dirty, take a paper cloth, hold it there and crank, and that will remove the dirt. I'm going to take our pawl, put that back in the carrier. And then hold your pressure on that pawl, make a turn, and you generally will seat the pawl back in where it's flush. Drop of oil on the pawl, drop of oil onto the worm gear. Some folks like to grease that. I do not. I think that the grease traps dirt, and particularly if you're using this in a saltwater environment, it's going to trap the micro sands and salts. And that's going to be abrasive and wear the parts down. Okay, now we should be able to give it a test. First test, of course, is did we make that stud align into that slot in the free spool? We want to pull back on this, and do we have a free spool? We do. You can see. Now, this reel casts with the line guide moving. So, as long as your line is aligned with the line guide, you're fine. And that the only time that happens is when you get out of sequence is if you break off line. But you don't have to worry about that. We'll show you how the line guide works. You set it to 0. When you're casting, the spool is moving in this direction. It's telling you in a number of feet how far out the line is. So right now it's at 8 feet. This can go out 300 feet, 400 feet, whatever it is. But again, it's going to help you locate the fish in the water column. When you get that strike, pay attention to where you are on the number of feet away from your boat or pier or on your drop. And then you can kind of hustle right back out to that space because, you know, that's where the fish are, and go from there. This does have the trip back mechanism, just like that, so we're good. All right, Warren, 1 down, 1 to go. You're in good condition, no missing pieces and parts. Happy to report. Reel is serviced. We'll get on to the next one, and you'll have it for the weekend to go fishing. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. I want to take a moment to thank our first responders, our fire, our police, rescue, safety workers. Thank you for everything it is that you do. I want to take a moment also to wish everybody fun times on the water, great fishing experiences with friends and family, and, well, just a good time repairing reels if that's what you enjoy doing as well. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.